The fire shifts in the grate, sending a scatter of sparks up into the dark throat of the chimney. You watch them rise, bright orange flecks against the blackened stone, climbing for a moment, and then winking out, one by one, as if they've remembered where they are and decided to rest. The armchair beneath you is deep and old and impossibly comfortable. Leather, worn soft by years of sitting, shaped by other bodies before yours, but fitting you perfectly now, as if it has been waiting for exactly this. A wool blanket lies across your lap, heavy and warm, the color of heather or maybe slate. It's hard to tell in the firelight, and it doesn't matter. You're not sure how long you've been sitting here. An hour, maybe longer. You arrived before the storm, when the sky was still just gray and heavy with the promise of snow. Now the promise has been kept thoroughly, completely, and the world beyond the lodge windows has become a single moving thing, white and wild, pressing softly against the glass. But in here, everything is still. The great room stretches around you, larger than you expected. The ceiling is high, held up by timber beams so dark with age and smoke that they've turned almost black, like the ribs of some enormous gentle creature arching overhead. The walls are timber too, honey-colored where the firelight reaches, deepening to shadow where it doesn't. The fireplace itself is the heart of the room, a massive thing built from stone that must have been carried here from the river valley below, each piece fitted carefully against the next. The hearth is wide enough to stand in, and the fire that burns there is substantial, not roaring, not dramatic, just deep and steady. The kind of fire that has been tended for hours and will last for hours more. You hold your hands toward it, palms open. The heat reaches you in waves, gentle and uneven, rising and falling with the rhythm of the flames. It touches your fingers first, then your wrists, then spreads up your arms and across your chest like warm water. You breathe in slowly. The air smells of wood smoke and old timber and something else, something sweet and resinous, like pine sap or beeswax. It's the smell of the lodge itself, of decades of fires and winters and quiet evenings exactly like this one. Outside, the wind rises for a moment, a low moan that presses against the walls, and you can hear the snow hitting the windows in soft, irregular taps. But the sound is distant, muffled, as if it's happening in another room, another building, another world entirely. The walls here are thick. 2 feet of timber and stone, built to hold against exactly this. You are inside. You are warm. The storm cannot reach you. On the table beside your chair, an oil lamp burns with a steady amber flame. Its light pools across the surface of the table, catching the grain of the wood, a ring where a mug once rested, a small stack of coasters, a book, face down, left open by whoever was reading it last. You don't pick it up. You don't need to read. You don't need to do anything at all. Across the room, through the warm shadows, you can see other shapes. A second armchair, empty. Facing the fire from the opposite side. A low table between them with a chess set, the pieces carved from dark and light wood, arranged mid-game as if 2 players stepped away and never returned. Further back, a long dining table with heavy chairs pushed in, and beyond that, a sideboard with glasses and a decanter that catches the firelight and holds it, dark amber like trapped sunshine. The floorboards beneath the rug are wide and worn, the kind that creak when you walk across them, but you're not walking. You're sitting, still, watching the fire and letting the warmth soak into you, deeper and deeper, until it reaches the places that have been cold for longer than you realized. You settle further into the chair. The leather sighs beneath you. And then you notice something. Through a doorway to the left of the fireplace, partly hidden by the angle of the wall, there's a warm glow. Not firelight, different. Steadier, softer. And with it comes a scent you hadn't caught before, something rich and dark like coffee or perhaps just the ghost of bread baked earlier in the day. You watch the glow for a moment, curious. Then, slowly, you push the blanket aside, rise from the chair, and walk toward it. The kitchen is smaller than the great room, and warmer if that's possible. The heat here is different. Not the open, flickering heat of the fireplace, but something more contained, more constant. It comes from a cast iron stove that stands against the far wall, black and solid and enormous. Its surface still radiating the steady warmth of a fire that burned for hours and has only recently been allowed to settle into embers. You can feel it the moment you step through the doorway. A wall of gentle warmth that meets your face and hands and wraps around you, and you realize that the great room, for all its fire, had a spaciousness to it that let the cold linger in the corners. Here, there are no corners where the cold can hide. The room is too small, too full, too thoroughly warmed. The ceiling is lower, the beams closer. You could reach up and touch them if you wanted. The walls are the same honey timber as the great room, but here they're lined with shelves, open shelves, running the full length of the room on both sides, filled with things. Jars. Dozens of them. Glass jars with metal clasps, arranged in neat rows, each one holding something different. Preserves in deep jewel colors, raspberry, plum, blackcurrant, their surfaces catching the lamplight and glowing like stained glass. Jars of dried herbs with handwritten labels you can't quite read from here. Jars of honey, one dark as molasses, another pale and golden and nearly transparent. You move deeper into the room, drawn by the warmth and the quiet industry of the space. A heavy wooden table stands at the center, scrubbed so many times over so many years that the grain has risen and the surface feels like driftwood, smooth and pale and slightly ridged. On it, a breadboard holds the remains of a loaf, dark and dense, with a thick crust that someone has sliced through with a serrated knife that still lies beside it. A small pot of butter, a ceramic dish of coarse salt, a jar of honey with a wooden dipper resting across the top. The bread is still faintly warm. You touch the crust, just lightly, with your fingertips. It yields slightly, the surface firm, but the inside still soft. Someone baked this today. Someone stood at this table, kneaded dough with floured hands, shaped it, placed it in the oven of that iron stove, and waited while the lodge filled with the smell of it. You breathe in, and yes, there it is, beneath the wood smoke and the herbs, the deep, yeasty, golden smell of bread. Above the table, copper pots hang from a rack suspended from the ceiling beams by iron hooks. They're different sizes, from a small saucepan barely bigger than a teacup to a stock pot that could hold a feast. Their surfaces are dark with patina, but where the firelight catches them, on the curved bellies, on the handles, on the rims, they glow with a warm, ruddy light. You reach up and tap one gently with your fingernail. It rings softly, a clear bell tone that hangs in the air for a moment and then fades into the warmth. Against the wall, beside the stove, there's a dresser, a tall, open-fronted piece of furniture with shelves displaying mismatched crockery, blue and white plates. Earthenware bowls in deep umber, mugs of different sizes, some chipped, all well used, nothing matches, and everything belongs. A clock hangs on the wall above the dresser. It's round-faced and old, with a brass pendulum that swings in a slow, steady arc behind a glass door. You can hear it now that you've noticed it, tick, 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 a patient, unhurried sound that measures nothing important. Just the passage of time, quiet and certain. You stand for a while, listening to the clock and the creak of the stove and the distant, muffled sighing of the wind beyond the walls. Then you move to the window above the sink. It's a small window, set deep in the thick wall, and the snow has piled halfway up the glass on the outside. The lower half of the view is just white, compacted, blue-tinged white, and above it, through the clear upper panes, you can see the snowfall continuing, relentless, the flakes huge and slow against the darkness. You lean forward slightly and breathe on the glass. A circle of condensation blooms, and for a moment, you can see your own warmth made visible. A soft cloud against the cold world outside. It fades quickly. You turn back to the room. A kettle sits on the stove, a heavy copper thing with a wooden handle. You place your hand near it, not touching, just hovering, and feel the warmth rising from it. The water inside is still hot, or at least very warm. Someone filled it not long ago. Beside the stove on a narrow shelf there's a tin caddy with a hinged lid. You open it, and the smell rises to meet you, loose leaf tea, dark and fragrant, with notes of bergamot and something smokier underneath. You take a pinch between your fingers and hold it to your nose, breathing in. It smells like comfort. You make tea, not quickly, not efficiently, just slowly, with the unhurried attention that the kitchen seems to ask of you. Hot water from the kettle into a ceramic pot, a spoonful of leaves, the lid placed on top. Then waiting, watching the steam curl from the spout, feeling the kitchen's warmth hold you while the tea steeps. When it's ready, you pour it into one of the mismatched mugs, a heavy stoneware one, glazed dark blue on the outside and cream within, and wrap both hands around it. The heat spreads through your palms, through your fingers, up into your wrists. You take a sip. It's strong and slightly smoky and perfect. You carry the mug with you as you move through the kitchen, past the table, past the dresser with its patient clock, toward the far corner of the room where something has caught your eye. A narrow wooden staircase. It rises steeply from the kitchen floor, hugging the wall, each step worn smooth at the center by years of feet. The wood is pale, lighter than the rest of the lodge, as if this staircase was added later, built from newer timber. A rope handrail runs alongside, attached to the wall with iron brackets. At the top, warm light spills down from whatever room lies above. And with the light comes a smell you recognize immediately, the particular, unmistakable scent of old books. You take your tea, place one hand on the rope rail, and begin to climb. The staircase turns once, following the shape of the wall, and then you're there. The library loft is a room that exists above the kitchen, and partly above the great room, tucked under the steep pitch of the lodge roof. The ceiling slopes on both sides, following the angle of the beams, so the space feels like the inside of a tent, or a chapel, or the hull of a wooden ship, turned upside down and set among the mountains. You step off the top stair and onto a floor of wide, dark planks that creak softly under your weight. The sound is gentle, companionable, the building acknowledging your presence without complaint. Books. That's what you notice first, and what you notice second, and what you notice after that. Books everywhere. Not in careful arrangements, not in the ordered way of a public library, but in the living, breathing way of a collection that has been gathered over decades by people who read and reread and kept and forgot and remembered again. Shelves line every available wall, from floor to the point where the ceiling slopes too low to hold another row. They're deep shelves, built from the same timber as the lodge, and they're full, packed tight in some places, loosely stacked in others, with books standing upright and books lying on their sides and books wedged horizontally above the vertical ones because there was nowhere else for them to go. You move along the nearest shelf, reading spines, novels, history, poetry, field guides to birds and wildflowers and alpine geology, a thick atlas with a cracked spine, a slim volume of star charts. Cookbooks with food-stained pages, a children's book about a bear who sleeps through winter, its cover worn to soft felt by many small hands. The lamp that drew you up the stairs sits on a small table beside an armchair. It's a reading lamp with a green glass shade, the kind you'd find in an old university library, and it casts a warm circle of light that falls across the chair and the table and the rug beneath, and leaves everything else in soft shadow. The armchair is deep, upholstered in something dark, burgundy or forest green, hard to tell, and its cushions bear the permanent impression of someone who sat here often, reading by this lamp, in this circle of light, while the wind moved against the roof above. You settle into it, your mug of tea warming your hands, and look around. The room is not large, but it feels complete. Everything a person might need for an evening, or a week, or a winter is within arm's reach. Books, light, warmth. The small wood stove in the corner is still breathing heat from its embers, a dull red glow visible through the glass door. The air up here is warmer than you expected, rising as it does from the kitchen below and held close by the low ceiling. On the table beside the lamp, you notice a few things. A magnifying glass with a brass handle, a leather bookmark cracked with age, and a small dish of walnuts still in their shells, with a brass nutcracker resting on top. Someone placed these things here with care, not as decoration, but as provisions, comforts for the long night. You take a walnut, turn it over in your fingers. The shell is hard and ridged, warm from the room. You set it back down. Across from the armchair, against the opposite wall, there's a desk. It's positioned beneath a window, and the window is extraordinary, wider than the others in the lodge, almost floor to ceiling where the wall is tallest, with a deep sill that could serve as a seat. But what stops you is not the window. It's what's on the desk, an unfinished letter. The paper is thick, cream-colored, the kind you'd buy from a stationer, not a supermarket. A fountain pen lies across it, uncapped, its nib dry now but still stained with dark blue ink. The handwriting is careful, unhurried, slanting slightly to the right. You don't read it. That's not yours to do. But you look at the shape of the words on the page, the rhythm of them, the way they stop mid-sentence, as if the writer looked up from the desk, saw something through the window, the first snowflake perhaps, or a bird on the sill, and simply forgot to return. Beside the letter, a small ceramic pot holds more pens. A ruler, a brass compass, tarnished green at the edges, and folded beneath the compass, a map. You slide it out carefully, its hand drawn. Pencil lines on heavy paper, creased from folding and unfolding. The mountains around the lodge are rendered in careful hatching, each peak labeled in the same handwriting as the letter. Trails are marked with dotted lines, each one named: the ridge path, the waterfall loop, the old shepherd's track. The lodge itself is drawn as a small square at the center, with a tiny spiral of smoke rising from its chimney. You trace the trails with your fingertip, imagining the walks they describe, the views they lead to, in summer perhaps, or autumn, when the mountains turn gold, but not now. Now, the mountains are buried, the trails are gone. There is only the lodge and the snow, and you, inside, warm, with a map of a world that will return when winter releases it. You refold the map and place it back beneath the compass. The wind is louder up here, closer to the roof. You can hear it working against the shingles, pressing and retreating, like breathing. The timber frame creaks in response, a conversation between the storm and the building that has been going on for as long as both have existed. It's not unsettling. It's the opposite. It's the sound of something holding, something built well, standing firm, doing exactly what it was made to do. You lean back in the armchair and close your eyes for a moment. The warmth from the stove reaches you in slow waves. The lamp hums almost inaudibly. The wind breathes against the roof. When you open your eyes again, you're not sure how much time has passed, but something has caught your attention. At the far end of the loft, where the ceiling slopes lowest, half hidden behind a bookshelf that juts out from the wall, there's a door. It's small, lower than a normal door, as if it was cut into the wall as an afterthought, or for a purpose that didn't require standing height. The wood is older than the rest of the room, darker, banded with iron hinges that are flecked with rust, and beneath the door, in the narrow gap between its bottom edge and the floor, cool air. You can feel it from here, a faint draft that carries a different smell. Not wood smoke, not books. Something mineral, something cold and clean, like wet stone. You set your mug on the table, rise from the chair, and walk toward the door. It opens inward, revealing a narrow passage and, beyond it, stone steps leading down. The steps are stone, each one carved from a single block, and they spiral downward in a tight, narrow turn. You descend slowly, one hand on the rough wall beside you. The stone is cool beneath your palm, not cold exactly, but distinctly different from the warm timber of the rooms above. It feels old, older than the lodge, perhaps, as if these steps were cut into the mountain itself, and the lodge was built on top of them afterward, a wooden shelter perched above a stone memory. The temperature drops with each step, not dramatically, not uncomfortably, but noticeably. The air that rises to meet you is clean and still, carrying that mineral smell more strongly now, the scent of earth and damp rock and something faintly tannic, like oak or old wine. At the bottom of the steps, the passage opens into a room, the cellar. It's smaller than you imagined, but it feels vast, because the silence here is so complete. You stand at the threshold for a moment, listening, and hear nothing. Absolutely nothing. The wind that pressed against every window and wall of the lodge, the crackle of the fire, the tick of the kitchen clock, the creak of the roof beams, all of it is gone. The stone walls and the weight of the earth above have swallowed every sound from the world you just left. What remains is a silence so deep it has texture. You can feel it against your skin, in your ears, behind your eyes. It's not empty. It's full, full of stillness, full of patience, full of the particular quiet that only exists underground, in places the weather has never reached. A single lantern hangs from a hook in the ceiling, left burning by whoever was here last. Its flame is small and perfectly steady, no draft to disturb it, no air moving at all, just a still point of warm light in the cool, dark space. By its glow you can see the room. The walls are stone, rough-hewn, the chisel marks still visible in the rock. The floor is stone too, but smoother, worn by years of careful feet. The ceiling is low, you could touch it if you raised your hand, and arched slightly, like the roof of a cave. Wine racks line the walls on three sides. They're made of dark wood, fitted together without nails, each bottle resting in its own cradle at a gentle angle. The bottles are dusty, their labels soft with age, and in the lantern light they glow with a deep warmth, dark reds and ambers, the occasional flash of pale gold where a white wine catches the flame. You move closer, bending slightly to read the labels. The handwriting is different on each one. Some are printed formal from estates you don't recognize. Others are handwritten directly on the glass, or on small paper tags tied around the neck with twine. Dates going back decades. A bottle from 1987. Another from 1994. One, in the far corner, with a tag that reads simply, "The year the roof was fixed." You smile at that, softly, in the quiet. Further along the wall, oak barrels rest on wooden cradles. They're small, not the enormous casks you'd see in a commercial winery, but the modest barrels of someone who made wine or cider in small batches, for themselves, for guests, for the simple pleasure of turning the harvest into something that could outlast the season. You rest your hand on the nearest barrel. The oak is cool and smooth, curved perfectly, bound with iron hoops that are spotted with rust. You can smell it, the tannic, vanillin scent of aged oak, mixed with the faint ghost of whatever it once held. In the center of the cellar, a small table stands on its own. Two chairs are drawn up to it, mismatched, one with arms and one without. On the table, two glasses, upturned, and a candlestick with a stub of wax burned almost to nothing. Someone sat here once. Two people, perhaps, choosing a bottle from the wall, opening it carefully, pouring by candlelight, talking or not talking, deep beneath the mountain, while the winter did whatever it wished above. The image is so clear, so gentle, that you stand beside the table for a while, just holding it in your mind. Beside one of the chairs, on a shelf carved into the stone wall, there's a ledger. You open it carefully. The pages are lined and filled with handwriting in different hands, spanning what must be years. Each entry records a bottle, a date, a brief note, 1998 Pinot. Opened for Marta's birthday. She said it tasted like autumn. 2003 Riesling. Too sweet. Better as a gift. January 2011. The big storm. We opened the 94 Bordeaux and played cards until the power came back. June 2019. Summer evening. The children ran barefoot on the lawn while we sat on the porch with the rosé. A perfect night. You read a few more entries, slowly, savoring each one the way you might savor the wines they describe. Each note is a small window into a life lived in this place, a record not of vintages and tasting profiles, but of moments, evenings and celebrations and ordinary nights that someone thought worth remembering. You close the ledger gently and set it back on its shelf. The cellar holds you in its silence for a while longer. There is no sound here, no urgency, no reminder of anything beyond these cool stone walls. The lantern burns steadily. The bottles rest in their cradles. The air is still and clean and old. You breathe in, slowly, and the coolness fills your lungs and it feels clarifying, like drinking cold water on a warm day, like stepping out of a crowd into an empty room. You breathe out, and something loosens in your shoulders that you hadn't known was tight. After a time that feels both short and endless, you turn back toward the steps. You climb slowly, hand on the stone wall, rising through the passage back into the warmth. The door at the top opens into the library loft, and the contrast is immediate. The warmth of the room envelops you, the familiar smell of books and wood smoke returning, the faint creak of the roof beams overhead like a welcome. You cross the loft, descend the narrow staircase through the kitchen, where the clock still ticks, patient and unhurried, and emerge once more into the great room. The fire has burned lower now. The flames have settled into a deep bed of embers, glowing red and orange and, at their hottest, a faint, pulsing white. The room is dimmer than when you left it. The oil lamp on the table has burned down too, its flame smaller, softer, casting shadows that are deeper and more gentle. And there, in the alcove beside the window that you barely noticed before, you see something that invites you. A window seat, deep and wide, built into the wall, with thick cushions and a folded blanket. You walk toward it. The window seat is deeper than it looked from across the room. The alcove is set into the thick stone wall beside one of the tall windows, a space carved out like a nest, enclosed on three sides, open only to the room. The cushions are old, upholstered in something soft and dark, and when you sit down and swing your legs up onto them, they hold you like cupped hands. You pull the blanket from its fold and draw it over your legs, up to your waist. Its wool thick and slightly scratchy, and it carries the scent of lavender. Someone tucked dried sprigs between the folds, and the scent has stayed faint and sweet. You lean back against the cushioned wall of the alcove. From here you can see the great room stretched before you. The fire, reduced now to its deepest embers, still casts a faint, warm glow across the floor. The leather armchair where you sat when the evening began is a dark shape beside the hearth. The chess pieces stand in their unfinished game. The decanter on the sideboard catches the last light and holds it, barely. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. You turn your head toward the window. The glass is cold to look at, even without touching it. Frost has crept across the panes in delicate patterns, feathered, crystalline, impossibly fine, as if someone with a very thin brush painted fern leaves and stars across the surface while you were underground. Through the clear spaces between the frost, You can see the snow still falling, but it's different now. Slower. The flakes are enormous, drifting down like pieces of torn paper, unhurried, as if the storm has spent its urgency and what remains is just the gentle, patient work of covering the world. Beyond the falling snow, you can see the outline of the mountains, just barely. Dark shapes against a sky that is not quite black, charcoal gray, softened by cloud, and somewhere behind it all, the faintest suggestion of moonlight trying to break through. The mountains are enormous and silent and very old. They were here before the lodge, before the people who built it, before the roads that wind up to it. They'll be here after all of that has gone. And right now tonight, they stand in the snow with the patience of things that have learned to wait and wait and wait without tiring. You watch them for a while. Their stillness is calming. Their permanence is a comfort. The wind outside has gentled too. It no longer presses against the walls with force, but breathes against them, slowly, the way a sleeping animal breathes, deep and even, and without effort. You can hear it, just faintly, through the thick glass, a low, constant whisper that rises and falls in a rhythm so slow it could be the mountain itself, breathing. Inside, the embers shift. A soft sound barely there, a click of settling wood, a whisper of ash. The glow pulses once faintly, then steadies. You become aware of your own breathing, in and out, in and out. Without trying, without deciding, your breath has matched itself to the rhythm of the wind and the embers and the slow falling snow. Everything is breathing together. The lodge, the storm, the mountains, you. Your hands rest on the blanket, palms down. They feel heavy, warm. The mug of tea, if you still have it, is beside you on the window ledge, but you've forgotten about it. It doesn't matter. Your shoulders are low. You notice this not because you lowered them, but because at some point they lowered themselves, releasing a tension you'd been carrying without knowing. Perhaps for hours, perhaps for days, perhaps for longer than that. Your jaw unclenches. The small muscles around your eyes soften. You settle deeper into the cushions. The wool blanket holds your warmth against you, and the alcove holds you, and the lodge holds the alcove, and the mountain holds the lodge, and the snow holds the mountain. You are held. Layer upon layer of holding. Your feet are warm. You notice this slowly, the way you notice everything now, not with attention, but with a kind of drifting awareness. Your feet are warm inside the blanket, and your ankles, and your calves. The warmth has been gathering for a while, building quietly, layer on layer, until your whole body feels like something that has been left beside a fire for a long time and has absorbed the heat so thoroughly that it has become part of it. Your hands rest on the blanket, loose and open. The fingers are slightly curled, relaxed, the way hands look when their owner has stopped asking them to do anything. You can feel the texture of the wool against your palms, soft and slightly rough, and beneath that, the warmth of your own skin, and beneath that, the steady rhythm of your pulse. You breathe in. The air tastes of wood smoke and lavender and old timber and the clean, mineral memory of the cellar below. You breathe out. And the breath takes something with it. Not much, just a small piece of the day, a thought you were holding, a worry you'd carried up the mountain without knowing. It leaves on the exhale, and it does not return. Another breath. Another small release. Your spine has settled against the cushions, each vertebra finding its place, the gentle curve of your back supported and held. The muscles along your shoulders, which have been working all day, holding bags, holding tension, holding the particular weight of being alive and responsible in the world, those muscles have finally, quietly, let go. You feel it happen. a softening, a loosening, like rope uncoiling, like snow settling. The fire breathes its last visible light across the floor, and the room dims further, and the shadows deepen into something that is no longer shadow but simply darkness. Warm darkness. Safe darkness. The kind that doesn't hide anything, that isn't waiting for anything, that simply exists as the natural companion of rest. Through the window, the snow continues to fall, but differently now. The flakes are slower, larger, drifting down like feathers, like thoughts that have come untethered from the mind that was thinking them. They move without direction, without urgency, each one following its own path from the sky to the ground, and you watch them with the particular attention of someone who is no longer fully awake but not yet fully asleep. The mountains behind the snow are less distinct now, just shapes, just suggestions of shapes. Dark forms against a sky that has softened from charcoal to something lighter, something tinged with the faintest silver where the moon is trying gently to press through the cloud. The shapes blur. The mountains become the sky, and the sky becomes the snow, and the snow becomes the window, and the window becomes the warmth on the other side of the glass, where you are, where you have always been tonight, held and warm and safe. Your eyelids grow heavy, not with effort, not with resistance, just heavy, the way things grow heavy when they're ready to rest. The way a leaf grows heavy on a branch in autumn. The way the air grows heavy before rain. A natural weight settling over you, welcome and warm. The frost on the glass catches the faintest light and holds it in its patterns. Ferns and crystals and small branching shapes that look like winter trees or river deltas, or the pattern of veins on the inside of a closed eyelid. You're not sure if your eyes are open or closed. It doesn't matter. The fire has settled into its deepest embers now, a faint red glow that is more memory than light. The room around you is warm and dark and perfectly still. The wind whispers once more against the glass and then falls quiet, as if it too has decided to rest. The clock in the kitchen, far away now, ticks on, but softer, slower. As if time itself has relaxed, has loosened its grip on the minutes, and let them drift like snow. Tick, tick. You are warm. You are held. You are safe inside this lodge, on this mountain, beneath this sky, and there is nothing you need to do, and nowhere you need to be, and no one who needs you to be anything other than exactly what you are in this moment. Resting. Still. The snow falls. The embers glow. The mountain holds its breath. And you drift. Not asleep, not quite, but somewhere close, somewhere soft. A place where thought becomes feeling and feeling becomes warmth and warmth becomes stillness and stillness becomes rest. The lodge breathes around you. The mountain breathes beneath you. The snow covers everything, gently, slowly, patiently, like a hand drawing a blanket over a sleeping child. And the last thing you notice before noticing becomes something quieter than noticing is the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace, deep and complete, and yours. The snow falls. The fire rests. The mountain holds, and you are held and still and deeply, deeply at rest. Good night.